Have you ever heard of a book, a best-selling book, called Meet Me at the Lake?
No.
I haven't heard about it. Apparently it's a huge bestseller. And Harry and Meghan are going to produce a film of it for Netflix. They've bought the rights to this best-selling romantic novel.
Yeah, the book is about a couple who meet in their 30s, similar to the Duke and Duchess's real-life relationship. The news comes amid reports their star is waning in the US after Spotify spectacularly dropped them.
And maybe they say they see this idea as something to actually sort of relaunch them in America. However, they've just bought the rights to a book to turn it into a film, but all the writers are going on strike.
Yeah, great timing.
Maybe they'll write it themselves or get AI to do it.
Yeah.
Let's speak now to former BBC Royal correspondent and friend of the programme, Michael Cole. Morning, Michael.
Good morning, Anne. Good morning, Martin. Yes, the California 2, their loveliness goes on and on. They're coming out of a new box here as film producers. They've bought the rights of this book for a reported £3 million. And, of course, there are echoes, there are parallels here. It's about two people who meet and fall in love in their 30s. They both come from fractured homes, check there. They both have suffered childhood trauma, check there. One of them has lost a parent in a car crash, another tick there. She has suffered from postnatal depression. There's lots of talk about mental health. And in addition to that, there's drug use. And of course, you can't read, if you're forced to spare the prince's memoir, without tripping over references to smoking weed and hallucinatory drugs and so on and so forth. So it's all there. All human life is wrapped up in this volume. And they're going to make a film of it. Not at the moment, of course, because Hollywood is strike-bound, but eventually they will. And this book has been written by a woman called Carly Fortune, who's a journalist turned author. And she lives in Toronto, known to the Canadians as Toronto. And but I'm not sure. Of course, that's where Meghan Markle did live when she was making Suits. And apparently, the book is full of steamy sex. Well, there was plenty of steamy sex in Suits, at least in one episode that I saw. So there we are. They're set to be the new sort of Samuel Goldwyn, Louis B. Mayer, film producers of the future.
Yeah, doesn't sound terribly convincing to me. Does it to you?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. You know, a film is as good as its production. It's been stressed that they're not going to be involved in front of camera. They're going to be the producers of this. It's quite a chunk of money. It's from, to pay £3 million in advance of that. And then you've got to get the whole thing together. But if it's a worldwide hit, of course, they'll get their money. If it's another love story going back a few decades, of course, they'll get their money back. But it certainly is. They've lost a big income stream with Spotify, who dismissed them with some degree of disdain. And they've had other income streams closed down. And as you said at the beginning, it seems to be that America is, to some extent, falling out in love with them. The thing about America is they always want what's new, the novelty, what's next. This is the home of nostalgia. This is where the David Hasselhoffs and the other people come here to do pantomime. We're the great people who love the people who used to be. In America, they just want what's next. And if you're not what's next coming out of the bandbox, then what are you doing here, sort of thing.
The big question, of course, Michael, is will the Sussex touch be the kiss of death or the kiss of life? Because let's face it, Spotify believed that would be the magic dust of guaranteed credibility and box office. It actually turned out to be complete kryptonite.
Well, it was terrible. And, of course, the man who was running it dismissed them as a couple of grifters. Well, that's American slang, which I think means confidence tricksters. In other words, he was saying that they signed up to do all this stuff and they didn't do it at the end. And somebody else who was talking about her talent said, does she have any talent at all? I think I did watch Suits. I thought she was a good little actress, in a good little show. It was quite well written and tautly scripted, but she was sixth on the call list. She wasn't even the star of it. And that was the peak of her ambition. So at the age of 42, I think is what she is now, do people go back on the screen in Hollywood? Not many parts for people of 42, women of 42 anyway. So we'll have to see. I mean, I wish them well. I hope they do have some success, because obviously they have a hugely expensive lifestyle, living in their hilltop fortress there, guarded around the clock by security. I mean, 3 shifts of big burly men, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and 1 extra on leap year. That costs an awful lot of money, and you can burn through it very, very rapidly. Of course, they were wealthy at the beginning, and they've made money. The Netflix deal was worth more than $100 million. And don't forget that Spare, published back in January, is the biggest selling biography there's ever been in the whole world. I mean, that must have brought in a few shekels.
Yes, but they're spending it, aren't they? And they're mixing with people who've got far more money, the real Hollywood wealth. However, I mean, setting up a production company, which is presumably what they'd have to do, is quite an ambition. They've got no form on that. And the only form, actually, for anyone from the royal family setting up a production company is Prince Edward. And that didn't exactly set the world on fire, did it?
Oh dear, ardent. Oh dear, ardent. Made 1 or 2. Dear old Desmond Wilcox, no longer with us, held his hand in that company. He made a couple of films on royal themes, Edward on Edward, which was him thinking about Edward VIII, the king who abdicated. And then, of course, it went bust. And people said at the time, when they walked into the headquarters, you know, there were lots of leggy secretaries and a beautiful marble atrium and everything, and pot plants. And when you see all that, you know that the company is going to fail, because you actually have to make the money before you have the accoutrements of success. And that went down the Swanee River, as, of course, did his wife's PR firm, now Duchess of Edinburgh. So the record of show business and the royal family is not one of an unalloyed success. But they've always been fascinated by it. Lord Mountbatten of Burma, he was absolutely fascinated by Hollywood. He went to Hollywood. He and his wife, they were friends of Charlie Chaplin and all the great stars of the 1930s and 20s, the silent era, Douglas Fairbanks and so on. So the royal family have always been fascinated by film in particular and show business, presumably because in a way, part of their shtick is being seen, is being out there, it is presenting themselves. And that's a very important part of majesty. You might want to deny it, but it's absolutely out there. That's what it is. And I wish them well. I mean, it's quite clear to me, and actually he's alluded to it, that Harry is in a way trying to live out the life that he thought his mother was going to have, because there were plans for her to move to Malibu with Dodi Fayed. They had it all worked out and they were going to go and live out there. And it appealed to her, Anne, because she felt that in America they'd give her an even break. You know, in America, particularly Los Angeles, celebrity is the currency. And there are so many celebrities. And if you're at Safeway, which doesn't exist in this country anymore, but does in America, and you're checking out your groceries and Kevin Costner is at the next checkout and you just say hello. Well, that's how it goes. People fit in. And Diana felt very strongly that after a while she would be able to fit in, and the Americans wouldn't bring to bear the pressure that there was in this country. So she was quite content to think of living there. And of course, she told her sons about that. So obviously Harry knows about that. So in a way, I think he's actually living out his mother's destiny, which of course she never fulfilled.
Yeah, but Dodi Fayed was a proven, very, very successful film director, was he not? Producer. He had
a lot of people that go to Hollywood and do nothing. He did 6 films, starting off with Broken Glass, if you can go back as far as 1980. And then, of course, he was the associate producer of Chariots of Fire, which was the first British film to win 4 Oscars. And he went on and did FX Murder by Illusion, parts 1 and 2. And The Scarlet Letter, which I think was an extremely underrated film. I rather enjoyed it. And he was associate producer of Hook. And at the time of his death, he was about to make a new live action, not a cartoon version, of Hook, of Peter Pan. And in fact, I had arranged for the rights of that to be extended because they are owned by Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital in perpetuity. That was bequeathed them by the author, Sir James Barrie. And he was going to make that, and he told Princess Diana all about it and how he was going to cast it and all the rest of it. And it was really strange that after her death, the first memorial to her, and perhaps the nicest one, was the children's playground in Kensington Gardens, which, of course, is all based upon Peter Pan, that wonderful story by J.M. Barrie.
Yeah. You can't help but think, if only, or, or what if. Yeah. However, Michael, absolutely fascinating talking to you and hearing those stories. Thank you so much for being with us.